Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Where are the positive aspects of patriarchy weigh into this conversation?
I know John Doyle's ready to sound off.
Monumental.
Let's stay here for a moment.
Didn't men create OnlyFans for these women to be angry about?
Exactly.
Hey guys, everybody, pause.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Let's maintain this.
Losing control.
How are you oppressed?
There's been countless and countless times, whether it be in academia, podcasts, whatever, where I say something and people say like she's a dumb bitch, or in academia it's more like
That's not an example of your oppression.
Well, if people are literally saying that, but then when it comes to a man saying the exact same thing I said, being like, oh, that was actually a very intelligent point, well then they are degenerating me, or then they...
Feminists posit that women are oppressed. You said yes. Do you think women are oppressed?
I do believe women are oppressed, yes.
Here in the U.S.?
Yes. Although
Say
I
it,
think
please.
First straight answer we got all right.
Different definitions of patriarchy, because I would say that patriarchy broadly refers to the state of the world. I'm really not interested in saying like blaming specific actors or genders or sexes, and this is no, I think that's completely counterproductive. I think you can analyze the world through a by analyzing the patriarchy, seeing the detrimental effects of that, and if you see an issue, you can address it.
Okay,
I think we need
that's
to get
fine. That's fine. Okay,
where are the positive aspects of patriarchy weigh into this conversation?
I know John Doyle's ready to sound off.
Monumental.
Let's stay here for a moment.
Didn't men create OnlyFans for these women to be angry about?
Exactly.
Hey guys, everybody, pause.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Let's maintain this.
Losing control.
Please, I have just like a little back and forth. I want to have a little back and forth on this. Please allow me to just get through it. Okay. Are men the oppressors?
Men and women are the oppressors.
Oh, great.
Why are you laughing? It's true. You don't think women hate...
Are men the oppressors? Because if women are the oppressed, certainly then men must be the oppressors. Is that true?
No, I don't. I think it's too complicated to
Fair
say
enough.
one gender or
Okay.
the other.
But so you both agree that women are oppressed
Yes.
by themselves. You're women. Are you oppressed?
Yes, in certain aspects.
Into the mic, please.
Yes.
How are you as a straight white woman oppressed in
Hold on.
America?
Before you answer that, are you oppressed as a woman?
Yes, I would say belonging to identifying, being a woman, yes, that puts you at a disadvantage socially because of the social biases we've been discussing earlier on the panel.
I think that's why no one has asked about.
Mary,
Hey
shut
guys,
the fuck up.
hey guys, everybody, Brian's trying to get some.
You're interfering with this clip farming, come on.
Okay. How are you oppressed?
There's been countless and countless times, whether it be in academia, podcasts, whatever, where I say something and people say like she's a dumb bitch.
What?
Or in academia, it's more like,
That's not an example of your oppression.
Well, if people are literally saying that, but then when it comes to a man saying the exact same thing I said, being like, oh, that was actually a very intelligent point, well, then they are degenerating me, or then they...
Are you talking about double standards? Because there's plenty of...
That's a form...
Yeah, being on a podcast, as if that's not a privilege to just be some random chick to be able to go on a podcast with millions of views.
I think I need another example from her because I don't think that doesn't feel sufficient.
That actually reveals that how privileged she is.
I've not seen from what she said, I've not seen any examples. I've not heard any examples of oppression. So I would like another example, miss.
Yeah. Do you think women are oppressed? And let's just keep it in America.
In America?
Yeah.
I don't believe women are oppressed in America. I've not felt oppressed because I was a woman.
Yeah, in my mind, things are fairly equal. And in fact, like, the trend is shifting.
I believe I've gotten a lot of special treatment because I am a woman.
Of course. Poor people are oppressed. Like, oppression follows the lines of, like, socioeconomic status.
Yeah, if I was to only look at my socioeconomic status, I could probably point out a lot more examples of oppression than I could if I only looked at my gender.
Yeah, like, in terms of like your personal characteristics, like personal biological, physiological characteristics, for the most part, there's not a lot of oppression going on. It's socioeconomic, class. It's class oppression.
That's the main one.
Yeah.
You don't think double standards is a
There's
form
some
of
that
oppression?
benefit men.
How are you defining oppression?
Themes of slavery and genocide.
Why would anyone complain about double standards in America? Why would any gender do that? As if there isn't a double standard for sentencing. As if there isn't a double standard for just simple things like access to privileged, exclusive spaces for free. So by her own definition, men are oppressed.
Some guy calling you a dumb bitch for accurately...
Oh my god, a form of oppression!
Have you ever hung out in like a Call of Duty, Call of Duty 2?
This is the problem.
Not being able to get a job
You have
because...
conversations like this, and you participate in conversations like this, and then feminists will literally think to themselves, why has every major religion in society imposed like borderline draconian rules on our behavior? And it's like, maybe this lends some credibility to that thing. I mean, women don't aspire to agency. This is the problem with women are oppressed. Can women be oppressed if they're not like tied down somewhere? You guys don't aspire to agency the way that men do. You are not fundamentally trying to lead, trying to do things things like that. You think you are because you respond to the media and society putting that idea in your head. But if that were not the case, you go back
I think
to
Brian wants you to end your little soy rant.
No, I was enjoying
literally
it.
everything
That rant was
you
soy
have
free.
said.
He called it a soy rant because he was making good
That
points.
rant was
No. Everything you have literally said are the same arguments people have used against black people in like the 60s.
Now I got.
She went there. The way they use black people as this like thing of convenience for them, where it's like, all right, we'll just use them, you know, when it suits us to make our argument.
Right.
They do that a lot with black people.
Oh my god! Oh my fucking god!
Oh, black people, no!
Not
the black people.
Holy shit!
Shut the fuck up.
Okay, hold on. If I dare tell me to shut the fuck up, actually say something afterwards. Otherwise, you're empty.
You've been yelling this entire time, so I haven't been able to say anything afterwards. You're not gonna sit here and fucking say that you being a whore is anywhere near the oppression that other groups, like black people or whatever, have faced.
You are the point.
No. You're saying they're calling me a dumb bitch. I'm so
No.
impressed.
I'm
If you
saying
want to
he's
call me a
saying.
dumb bitch, then don't act like a dumb bitch.
Okay.
Don't fucking
John made
say
it
that.
seem like
I
it's
didn't
No,
do
what
it.
I'm saying,
Right.
first of all, you guys took my point, completely fucking twisted it.
Yeah, I don't think we're doing like oppression Olympics here.
Oh, no.
No.
She's
The point that I was trying to make
What about
is
black
that
people?
the
about
point
black
that I was
people?
trying to make is that people look at my gender and, you know, have limited my opportunities when it comes to, like, let's say, careers.
Look
or
at
when
your
it comes to-
retardation.
Billy, go ahead.
No, they don't.
Into the mic.
they
Into the
don't.
mic.
You have a
Retardation.
greater advantage being a woman today. Do you? I think.
Into the mic.
Sorry. I think we should list. I think if we asked men and women at this table to list off how they're oppressed in today's society, then men could come up with a much bigger list.
I got
Yeah.
one.
What do you feel, man? Like, I mean, you agreed like women aren't oppressed.
Yeah, I agreed that men are, like, if we were to do a list, a comparable list of oppressions, I think the men's list would be longer.
Mm-hmm. Generally, I don't think anyone's oppressed. Again, I think it's more class, man. In terms of the laws that exist and the requirements in society that are, like, you know, men are more oppressed than women. For the simple fact that men have to register for the selective service. The courts are more stringent and strict on men.
Women will rather go end up on their back than end up on the streets.
That would rather what?
End up on their back than end up on the streets.
Sure, but
Do you
I mean,
think
like,
it's
even
like in a more
ignoring,
vulnerable-
hold on,
Hold
even ignoring that, I'm just saying that, like, there's a lot of questions that we ask in terms of, like, and the oppression Olympics thing is weird. To be clear, because I'm drawing my own, so patriarchy arguably oppresses and raises up both men and women in different ways, right? But when we ask questions like, well, who's more homeless? Men can survive being homeless because we have a lot of biological advantages and because we're not subject to violence from other men in the same types of ways that women are, right?
Right.
When, for instance, when women talk about, or when red pillars say, you need a man to protect you from who? From other men, right? Because that's typically the people that are abusing or violating other women. So when you ask that question, who's more likely to be homeless? It's probably going to be men, of course, like 98%.
So
but women are going to make it homeless.
Fair point, but I want to add on to that because she's saying that the patriarchy, like, you know, disproportionately affects women in a negative way, and it doesn't affect men in a negative way. But then where does homelessness come into play?
So the reason I don't like to use negative is because patriarchy is just like
I don't go based off her example.
Sure,
That's what I'm saying.
Patriarchy is like a way that society is structured. It's enforced by everybody because in some ways men and women benefit from it. In some ways men and women hurt from it. But there are the way that we suffer under it, arguably, is subjective in whether or not it's good or bad. So, for instance, like I imagine on this side of the table, people would say that women being relegated to relatively narrow roles and how they can participate in the house and society, they consider that a good thing. Feminists traditionally would say, well, women being relegated to narrow roles in the house would be a bad thing. Right? So it's hard to say that, like, is patriarchy good or bad? It's just like a form of organizing society, the same way that a matriarchy would be, the same way egalitarian would be. There's going to be pros and cons to every type of organization. Right? Even patriarchy in some ways is incredibly beneficial to how society's arranged. It makes, like, figuring out gender roles and households and everything incredibly fucking simple. And it gives really clear guidelines for how men are supposed to act and how women are supposed to act. That's like a benefit. But in some ways it's a negative. Destiny and arguing for patriarchy. But in some ways it's a negative because you might have an incredibly talented pool of women that could be contributing to society in really positive ways that are now basically relegated to being barefoot and pregnant in their homes all the time because we don't really want their contributions, right? The reason why I think that our society has succeeded more in the West than it did in any other place in the world is to some extent because we opened the floodgates to allow any type of person to have a conversation. And that's why podcasts like this or Fresh and Fit, you're getting people from fucking that have traveled to Saudi Arabia and Dubai coming back and arguing with black women and Hispanic women and men of all sorts of different backgrounds and religions are all coming together having these conversations. They're not doing that in fucking Saudi Arabia. They're not doing that in fucking Iran. They're not even doing that in a lot of places in Europe. That's happening in the United States of America. And I think it's largely because we've tried to break down a lot of those barriers. Are you contributing this?
People have just they have such a short-sighted worldview, and or just how they view things, and it's like patriarchy, bad, evil, it's only evil, and it's because it's men, and men hate women, and women are oppressed, and it's like it's so comic book childish, ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's like the point he made is this is correct one. It benefits people, and it doesn't benefit people in very complex and unique ways.
It has its pros and cons.
Yeah,
in
like
both ways.
like it could be, and it could literally be the case that we live in a patriarchy, but men are more oppressed under it. You can't like start looking at the composition, right? You can't look at the personal characteristics of the people who are in the elite groups and then expand that out into the larger population and act like the ones who have nothing to do with it are somehow responsible. So it's like, wait, but there's a lot of men in power. And then ignore the most important aspect of them being in power, which is their membership of this elite group. Not their race, not their gender, it's they're part of the group. So now people who are of the same race and gender, whatever, are now being blamed for things like, hey, you're an oppressor because look, all these guys are in power. It's like, because you think most CEOs are, white men are somehow collectively oppressing, like, get out of here, man. Like,
if I think about the viewpoint of the rigidity of oppression, like, I don't like it. It doesn't really gel with me, because I would think if you were thinking strictly like, oh, that women are being oppressed by men, a woman born into a high class, high pedigree family with wealth and status has way more advantages and resources and opportunities than a man of her same race that was born in like the slums of somewhere. So it's not the gender. I think it definitely is the social
class.
Yeah, the class.
Yeah.
And that I even would apply that towards race. Like a black female who was born in a well-to-do family has way more access and privilege than, say, a white male born in, trailer park somewhere.
Of course.
But then they'd be like, oh, but it's systematic. Like, no, it's class. Like,
it's class.
There's no way you could argue that this white man is gonna have better outcomes than a black woman born in a very, wealthy, well-to-do family.
You're not. Like, it's simply she's a member of a group.
Yeah.
And she knows the rules and standards, and it's like the class is just, it oozes out of you.
Yeah.
You go to the restaurant, you don't even know how to pick up a spoon. You don't know which spoon is which. You're going to look crazy, and they're going to judge you, and she does. Mm-hmm. They're going to look at the black chick who grew up around them, and she's not going to stick out like a sore thumb. Because they're like, oh, okay, she's of our group.
Right.
It must be horrible to have these worldviews. How does it feel?
I feel like they're very narrowed worldviews, very...
You know what? It probably is very empowering to have such a narrow... Because it's like you feel like you have it all figured out.
Yeah.
But it probably pisses you off because it's like, it is, I'm getting oppressed. Like, you probably feel like there's this thing attacking you. You get what I'm saying? It's like, it's good and bad, because in one end, you probably feel like, I know what's happening. I see the world. But on another end, it's like, you probably feel like you're being attacked in ways you're not. So now the guy at your local Starbucks who just waves at you, see that? It's because he doesn't value me as a human woman and equal, that he tries to objectify.
Like, there's so much cool shit that happens in the U.S. that only happens in the U.S.
I agree.
People come here. I know you guys have argued. People come here for the opportunity and stuff. We have a really unique environment here, and I think largely it's because we've tried to push people outside of like the hardcore relegated roles that we feel like they need to be in, which I think benefits all of us.
I probably enjoyed Destiny's rant.
More.
I felt like that felt more of the highlight of the.
This is the most logical take.
The most logical, like
an adult in the room.
Yeah.
It's like
the adult has entered the chat.
Infants, like these freaking infants.
But before that, they were just like yelling at each other.
Yeah.
And calling
each other names.
She's arguing that her being bullied is oppression. It was.
Her being bullied in the context of her privilege. Don't forget that.
In the context of her privilege, I was just like, girl, okay. She's
the version of, wait, what's my Mercedes is gonna be in the shop for how long, and I have to drive this Toyota? It is what it is. But anyways, that was the video. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.